Ian Johnson here again with the Pulse Real Estate Investments team, and this is part 2 of my little HOA series that I'm talking about, our community series. And this is the more fun one probably than the last one for most, because this one gets to talk about all the disputes and problem resolution and why there is so much animosity towards HOAs and their community managers and boards, and what you can do about it. So in the last video, I said that there are differences between condominium communities, townhome communities, and regular residential single-family home communities. And truthfully, the only difference between all those is how the exteriors of buildings are managed, because in townhomes and condos, you have all the shared wall in the exterior of the building, and all that stuff is typically maintained by the association, whereas single-family homes, you're responsible for basically everything on your own plot of land. So honestly, at the end of the day, that's probably the biggest difference. Both types of communities and ownerships usually have common area that need to be managed, so that's pretty similar. It just really boils down to how the actual structures are maintained. So that's out of the way, great. I wanted to move into the next part of this, which is transparency. So a lot of folks out there feel like their associations aren't very transparent. They don't tell them everything. They're hiding things. They're this, they're that. Look, there could be collusion and some secrecy among board members and managers in some communities, but typically that's not what really happens. The books, and by books I mean the CC&Rs and laws, stipulate that some of this information, really a lot of it, has to be transparent with the members of the community. That doesn't mean that you are privy to stuff where, folks have private issues with the HOA, or, their individual house stuff, things like that, or, not non-payment, things like that. You're not necessarily privy to all the real bottom end stuff. That's reserved for the manager and members of the board. So there's some confidentiality. But as far as budgets are concerned and the actual financials that are produced, yes, as a member, you are completely privy to all of that information. Again, barring the sort of the more private stuff. There shouldn't be much of a problem with that. I think for most, you can ask for it and you can get it from your manager, not a problem. This kind of brings me into my next segment here of why are HOAs and associations so mean to me? Well, they're not trying to be mean to you in most cases. For the purposes of all this, we're going to go with, you have a manager that is good at what they do and they are looking out for the betterment of the community, and you have a board that is also on the good side of things and looking to be balanced and provide for the best course of action for your neighborhood. Now, HOAs and associations are not mean. They're really not. They have a job to do, and sometimes that means telling you did something wrong, like, hey, don't leave your trash can out. It's been like 3 days. You might have a 24-hour period where it needs to be brought up. They're not being mean to you. They're just telling you, look, these are the rules. Everybody else follows them. You have to abide by them too. And most of the time, you get a fair warning up front before the association takes more stern action by giving you fines. And a lot of times, if you start just capitulating and doing what you're supposed to, they'll waive the fines. But if you present yourself as a problem case in the community, yes, they will keep fining you for the same stuff over and over and over again, and those fines normally stick until you sell your home or your townhome or your condo. So keep that in mind. They're not being mean to you. They're just enforcing a set of rules just like the police do. Fines was my next topic I wanted to talk about. Fines are there sort of as punitive measures. You're generally, like I said, given fair warning for stuff, but eventually people get fined because unfortunately, people tend to respond more to, I owe somebody money now because of something I did and I don't want to pay it, and so on and so forth. And so keep it in mind, if you're getting whacked with fines, you're probably on the deserving end of it at that point. Now, even though you may have been fined for something, or you may have a lien against your property, or really anytime you have a dispute with a decision that the HOA has made against you, there is usually language within your CC&Rs and state statutes that discusses dispute resolution, which means that you're given an opportunity to go before the board and discuss your matter with them, your matter directly with them, so that you can try to find a resolution. This is your fair shot to bring your evidence to the board and say, this is why I shouldn't be fined, or I didn't do this, there was an error. There is definitely some burden of proof that needs to go on the association side in proving that you did something. Generally, this is done with photographic evidence. Picture is taken in the catalogs, like you leaving your trash can out late. So things like that, there is a recourse, and you are entitled to this. 100%. They cannot tell you no if you want to have dispute resolution. Keep that in mind. The rules and amendments guide all of this, and they're usually a fair set of books. People may not like everything that's in there, and people get a big head sometimes and feel that they shouldn't be responsible for themselves in following all this, and they should be given special dispensation. Sure, the HOA can bend rules and things like that to have what I call a live and let live policy, where there's some flexibility within the rules, because nothing in life is ever perfect, and there needs to be a certain amount of give and take, because if you rule things to the letter at every take, it kind of turns your community into a prison, which most people don't enjoy. There are notorious communities throughout the country that folks know if you move there, it is like a prison, and you best be aware that when you go there, you're going to be following everything to the letter, and if that's not for you, don't move there. So this is another reason why people tend to dislike HOAs, because there are communities that exist like that, and unfortunately, the good ones are always forgotten, and the bad ones are always remembered. If you have issues, general issues within the community, I highly advise you to go and partake in a routine meeting that has happened, whether it be monthly, quarterly, twice yearly, annually, whatever it is. Show up to a meeting. It's a great time to discuss your problems with the board and the other members, or to make suggestions in how to better the community. I highly advise this. Otherwise, your voice may or may not be heard. You can voice it to your manager, and a good manager will bring this to the board. But hey, you know what? It's always best to show face sometimes and go to these meetings. People in communities, again, harping on the whole issues thing, neighbors, folks in communities typically have problems with one another at one point or another while they're living there. And the problem is that neighbors don't like conflict. They don't want to confront each other on problems, and they look to the board at every turn for dispute resolution between one another. Now, there are certain things that if your neighbor is doing and it's in confliction with the CC&Rs, and it's something that the rules and guidelines that the board can take care of and help you with, normally they do, but you have to remember that association is not a police entity. There are a lot of things that the board cannot help you with, and you have to go to the actual police in your municipality or city. You have to do that sometimes. And also, to help the association, if there is something that the association can do but there's no proof, getting police reports and having evidence of several police reports sometimes for certain things empowers the HOA to be able to levy fines or other decisions against a certain person and take sanctions. So you sometimes really do need to go to the police. So don't be offended if your manager says, go to the police, I can't help you. It's not that they don't want to help you, it's because they can't help you. You have to remember that. And a lot of people lose focus of this, and they get angry at the HOA because why am I paying them? They don't do anything. It's not true. Sometimes they just can't help you. So talk to your neighbors first. Knock on the door. Hey, your music's a little loud. Can you turn it down? I can hear it in my house, something like that. And again, have a live and let live policy a little bit. Folks are going to do different things at different times, and one incident isn't always going to be representative of how things are going to be in the future. So a lot of this comes and circles around back to conflict. So talk to your neighbors, talk to your board, show face, have a good time. If you've got any questions, give me a call, 602-800-4042. If you're looking to invest in a new home, sell your current one, or in commercial, reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you. I'm available. Have a great day, guys.